Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome to Game 3 of MMA versus Bomber. So, spawning in the top left, we are going to have, of course, Mr. MMA. And down in the bottom right corner, we're going to see Bomber, who, of course, we've all seen in the last couple games, do pretty well. This series is currently tied at 1-1 before Game 3. So we'll see how Game 3 plays out. One player will be up 2-1 after this, of course. Now this game's going to be played out on Akilon Waste, probably one of my favorite maps, simply because it seems so balanced in a lot of ways, at least to me, because for Terrans, there's a lot of space you can go drop. For, say, Protosses, there's a lot of open field to fight. For Zerg, the same. And also, it's not too big of a map, it's not a medium-sized map, so all builds are still pretty viable around here. Now, one feature about this map I want to talk about is the third base. So you'll notice that the natural, obviously, it's like any other natural, just down a small ramp, and there's your natural right there. But the third base, you have an option of breaking down these rocks here and getting this third base, or going ahead and just going and taking this third base. Now, the benefits to taking this one is that if you break these rocks down, then you're going to have an impassable wall there until the rocks are broken down from here, and then you still can't go through here. So there's a there's a very small choke point right there that the units will have to be funneled through. Oh, let me bring these up, by the way. And also, if you take this third, the risk you take, though, is all this dead space right here. A couple drops can sit here and that's your main and your third base at the same time, especially if you can't multitask enough. So far the build's fairly similar, obviously, as we've seen in the past couple games. These players have actually gone for very, very similar builds that only start to deviate into like the 6 or 7 minute mark, really, or probably closer to the 5-minute mark. So both players should be getting their orbitals down and their factories. We've seen Cloaked Banshee in both games so far, so we'll see if we go for that again. I believe it's been MMA going for that in both games as well. So, looks like, obviously, they're just going to be starting out with that. Probably, yet again, I would expect to see it. Marines coming out to deny any scouting, and it looks like nobody's actually going to be scouting in this game. So, both of them just kind of going to be guessing until they get some scans down or something along those lines. So, we'll see how each player reacts to the lack of scouting. Bomber has actually not significantly scanned in any of the first 3 games so far. The Marines actually moving down to this ramp. I actually like this a lot more because, say, an SCV or a Reaper does come up here, then not only do they not know if you have or they don't know about your tech, they don't even know if you have a natural, which can be really big. So he's gonna get the starport moved over here, just so, say, if MMA scans right here, he may not see this, although if he doesn't see it, that will probably tell him it's there, because he sees the double gases anyway, and he would only see 1 barracks, which would probably tip him off to the Banshee play regardless, which it should end up being Banshee play in this time, I would think, since it's more hidden than in the other 2 sequences where he went for the Raven. So if he's trying to hide it like that, I would expect that to probably be Banshee play, although he doesn't necessarily have enough gas to go for the Banshee and Cloak at the same time, so we actually could see a Raven coming out here. We'll see. I don't know, it's going to be a Banshee just without Cloak. Now, I mentioned this in the last game about how sometimes if you don't really want to just fully commit to that Banshee doing damage, you can just go without Cloak, which looks like it's going to be Bomber's preference at this time, and it's actually going to rally fairly close to these Marines positions, so we'll see how that ends up going. Same thing coming out from MMA, although MMA is going to go for that Cloak. So this will be very interesting to see, because Bomber is only going to have the scans coming from this orbital, seeing that this orbital command will not be done before the Banshee hits. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, obviously. The Widowmine is going to be moving down. Now, if I were him, I would be keeping this Widowmine in my base, just so that if that Banshee does come through, since you know you haven't scouted, it's always good to have that out. Oh, looks like he may just have this Widowmine burrowed in case the Banshee does fly right over it, just in kind of a random spot. He needs to burrow it about now, though, if he wants any chance of that happening, and it will not happen. But the Banshee will go ahead and kill off that Widowmine, and now he knows it's on its way. I think the reason Bomber just went ahead and attacked that Widowmine instead of trying to kill, or instead of just going past it, was because he's not too committed to this attack at this time. Raven's going to be coming out for Bomber. We'll see if it's there in time. It should definitely reduce the amount of damage MMA's gonna do, but not really too significantly. You can see he's already lost 2 Marines. If I were him, I'd be going straight for the SCVs at the moment. Sure, these Marines are good to kill, but they're really not what's going to get you too far ahead in the game, because these Marines are easy to remake, and, you know, really they're not going to translate amazingly into any sort of later phase. Now you can see he's starting to focus down some of those SCVs. Auto turret coming down from the Raven. He's just trying to get as much damage as he can. We'll see if he does end up killing it. These Marines just need a couple more shots. Oh, and that Banshee's going to escape with 2 health. Oh, that's just a killer, unless this Raven can get, like, the Seeker missile out. But at the moment, we'll see if that's what it ends up doing. I don't really know how much energy it needs for that. It needs 75, so it's going to take a long time to get that amount of energy. Banshee for Bomber, if we look at the units lost, Bomber did lose a lot more. Really what Bomber's just doing with his Banshee is just keeping active out on the map. Just making sure he kind of has an idea what's going on in MMA's base. His Banshee will fall to the side, but he's not really going to try and save it. So there we go. Looks like MMA's Banshee will be falling back. Probably going to get repaired over here. So MMA definitely has a lead right now. Although the siege tanks for Bomber, if we check the units tab, there are no siege tanks out yet for MMA. So if he does happen to get a good siege position, say right here, and kills a lot of Marines, then obviously that would be pretty huge. Sure, this Raven can place down a point defense drone, but as long as he's got the siege tanks further enough apart so that they don't just get picked off by point defense drones, Seeker missiles, I'm sorry, then he should be fine in pushing forward if that does happen. So as far as supplies go, MMA only has a 3 supply lead, and as far as the worker count goes, Bomber actually has a 1 worker lead, which is kind of interesting, seeing that he did lose up, I think it's only like 1. But again, like, the resources lost is kind of deceiving. Sure, MMA is up by 600 resources, but that's just a Banshee and a bunch of Marines and maybe 1 SCV. So, I mean, those Marines, they are really easy to remake, pretty obviously. The only reason I would see that affecting him at all is if, say, a big Marine push came through, then obviously MMA is going to have the Marine lead. But really, in all honesty, it's not too significant. Now, one thing I've liked from MMA in every game so far is that his map presence has been fantastic. He's always out on the map looking to get sight just anywhere he can. He doesn't have this side, he doesn't have vision on that side very well, but his vision on this side of the map, as you can see on the map, is very effective. Like, nothing's going to get through there easily at all. That Banshee won't end up dying, but it is going to pull the Vikings out of position for this Banshee in the main. We'll see if this can end up doing anything. There are missile turrets in a good enough position to zone this out. He may be able to, like, sit right here and hit that refinery, but that would be probably the most he could do with that, and the Marines are in good enough position to where they could just run over and kill it. So, coming out from each player, we are going to be having the 1-0, the stim packs, and are there any combat shields yet for Bomber? There is not. So that is one advantage MMA is going to have. So his Marines are definitely going to be a lot more effective than Bomber's, and Bomber has less of them. So if MMA realizes that, he could definitely do some damage. These Vikings out here, I guess, just looking to maybe randomly pick off a Banshee or something. They're a little far out, though, for my liking, personally. With this Raven not being in position, he's really taking a large risk. He needs to get these Marines in there, definitely. Units lost, looks like he lost maybe 2 or 3 more SCVs there. Nothing too crazy. These Marines should come over and skim and hopefully kill that for Bomber. Missile turrets just aren't in good enough position. And he will lose this Banshee here, but not before getting some significant damage done. Looks like he's just poking out with these here, doing what he can, but really MMA is the one that's taking the initiative in this game, really being the one to press the issue and saying to Bomber, you know, you react to me, I'm going to go out and do what I can do, and you can just play your style. So, we're going to have a double drop coming into the main of Bomber, and actually all the units for Bomber are moving out at this time, so it's likely we're going to see some pretty crazy action coming up in just a second, especially once MMA sees this army coming through here. He's going to know that this drop is going to be able to just decimate Bomber's base. So we'll see. He has 2 Marines, maybe like 5 if he draws these back, but the double drop should be moving in at any moment. Oh, he actually needs the afterburners. Ooh, this isn't good. He needs to get the double drop in. He's actually pulling it back. He needs to be going into the base with that drop. Okay, he needs to be moving it forward again, but he needed to have that in a little bit earlier. Right now, Bomber is pushing into the base of MMA, not the main base so far, just the natural. But now there are Marines here to defend against this drop. So I actually don't know how much going to happen. Bomber's Marines are choked here, but there just may be enough to start pushing this back. Oh, the natural is lost for MMA. Bomber's push here actually doing really well. This drop for MMA needed to be in Bomber's base much sooner than it was. Thanks to that, Bomber was able to gain a significant lead. Now MMA's income is significantly just scattered, I suppose. And Bomber's sure it's not doing great either, but it's definitely not as bad as MMA's. Bomber really pushing in here, and there is the GG from MMA. Very, very interesting game played out there. That one really could have just gone either way towards the end of that game. If this double drop had been here maybe 30 seconds earlier while the Army USA positioned here, then the main base for Bomber would have been lost. There was 2 Marines to defend up here, but Bomber was able to get in time and confuse MMA enough to, and MMA just could not multitask quite enough. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this cast of StarCraft. If you did, please like and hit the subscribe button below. Really helps me out, and I love to see the support from all you guys. So, also leave a comment. Just feel free, do whatever you want, and I will make sure to see you guys in Game 3 of MMA versus